Welcome to the First Time Facilitator podcast. Whether you're a first-time facilitator or a seasoned pro, listen in for tips and tricks to make a bigger impact at the next workshop you deliver. And now, your host. Her favourite go-to meal is beef noodle pho from a Vietnamese cafe down the road, Leanne Hughes.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Leanne Hughes, and I'm here to help you create unpredictable workshop experiences that predictably work. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh my gosh, end of November, which means in a day after this episode is released, we're in December, end of 2020. I hope you're all having sort of stepping back and having a bit of a relax, particularly given everything that's gone on this year. I think this is a really great opportunity for all of us to enjoy the break, reflect on what's going on, and let's see what next year has to offer. We'll have a few sort of episodes based around recapping the year and activities that you can do as part of December. But just letting you know that it's pretty exciting, I think, and I'm actually surprised that I'm not saying this year has gone by so quickly. It certainly hasn't. Now, last week on the show, we had Michael Grinder. Now, he's an absolute legend in the world of nonverbal communication, and he shared how you can do things like to create contrast using space, even in a virtual workshop. The strategies are unbelievable. The link to his YouTube video is also in the show notes for that one, so check it out. This week, we're talking about how something physical and tactile can really help unlock a ton of ideas within a workshop. And yes, this can also apply to your virtual workshops too. I am talking about Lego Serious Play. And while I've played with Lego and been in workshops where the facilitator has used Lego, I don't think I've seriously played with it. Many of the workshops where I've been a participant, it's been an activity. So you work as a team and you're given an instruction like, hey, as a team, you need to build a truck within 20 minutes. And then what you do after that is you debrief that process. The exciting thing is, though, we can use Lego in so many different and amazing ways. And today's guest is all about sharing the Lego Serious Play love with the world. And he's even written a book about it to make it more inclusive for all of us to start digging into the world of Lego Serious Play, or LSP for short. Today's guest is Michael Fearne, and Michael helps clients to break out of the business as usual dynamic and be more innovative using the awesome power of LSP. That's right, Lego plus work equals a more innovative business. As the founder of Pivotal Play, Michael uses his experience as a professional facilitator and expertise with Lego Serious Play to help teams to think more creatively, communicate more effectively, and deliver more innovative results. He also empowers people like us, like you, the listener, to use this technique themselves by coaching and guiding them, giving them the tools and the benefit of his experience so they can get the most out of their meetings. Now, Michael works with startup founders right through to executives at large organizations. I love the flexibility of this tool, and he customizes each session to suit every need. In this conversation, Michael shares how all of us can use Lego effectively during our workshops and provides some awesome ideas on how we can do that. And he also shares how using something tactile can really help boost the use of metaphor and story sharing, and how you can overcome any objections that you have from your participants. He also dives into how he prepares for workshops and the value of having a solid routine to start each and every one of his workshops that he also shares in his book. Now, his book is called The LSP Method, and it is out right now. There are some absolutely beautiful photos of LSP in action in this book, which is just an excellent trigger and reminder of how it can transform your workshop experience. I love the practicality of the book and how Michael even shares how you should set up the room to how to open up the workshop using an activity called the 6 Bricks activity. All the instructions are in there. It's awesome. Are you curious? Well, a link to how you can find the book and reach out to Michael, as well as our video conversation and everything else, is in the show notes for this one over at firsttimefacilitator.com/episode 149. And of course, if you'd like to continue the conversation when the podcast is over, join our community of over 1,100 facilitators in the free Facebook group called The Flip Chart. We're having a ton of fun conversations in that group and look forward to seeing you there. Now, onto the show. All right, I'm delighted to welcome onto the First Time Facilitator podcast, Michael Fearne. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, hey, Leanne. Thanks so much. So excited to be with you.
now I think I've got over about 150 first-time facilitator episodes, and in a few of those we've mentioned Lego Serious Play. We had Joel Birch on. What's interesting, we've also had Steph Clark and Murray guests on the show a few
Yeah.
times. And what's common between all three of them is that they've been to one of your programs.
Yeah.
So can you please share, I mean, you're like the facilitator's facilitator, really. Can you share a bit about your story, how you discovered the world of Lego Serious Play? But yeah, what's your background?
Yeah. It's happy to dive into it just in a little bit. So yeah, it all started back at uni where I was just fascinated with psychology. So it was like I love social psychology, I love group processes, and so that just really was fascinating for me. And so I ended up in HR as we do. When we're interested in psychology and the workplace. And yeah, so I started out as a trainer. That's where my sort of first, getting in front of people happened. And it was actually at the big four accounting firm called KPMG. And so I was there, I learned how to train people, and it was lots of soft skills and systems. And it was very much the sage on the stage type thing. You stand up there and you blurt out a lot of info. You look back and you're a bit horrified about it, but that's where we all start learning. So yeah, did that as a trainer for a while, and just way too conservative for my liking. These big four accounting firms, they're great and they're getting better, but I just needed to break out of it. And so did that, started my own business. And from that, did a bunch of different things and came across Lego Serious Play, which 7 years ago just took over my life. So I sort of read a book about the early days of it, got certified in it, and just started bringing it into my programs. And it was pretty amazing, the results I was getting, like compared to what I was doing with training previously. The conversations that I was having was just, I loved it, and the participants loved it. So yeah, it took over my life, and client workshops, started teaching it to people because I just wanted everyone to be doing it. And so that's where, Joel and Steph and Murray came along, and a whole bunch of others over the last 5 years. And so when it comes to, Lego Serious Play, I guess I teach a lot of facilitators how to do it, as well as still keeping my fingers in with a lot of clients using the method.
Gosh, we got a really similar background. It's funny that you mentioned like you love group processes and all that, and so you studied HR and psychology. That was exactly the same reason that drew me to that field. What
Mm,
was interesting though is when you join a HRE job, is that you're not necessarily doing that stuff if you're not training or running the culture side. The HR side is, it's not really about that.
no.
Um, and and also I've also got like a corporate training background. You can't really like let loose. You can sort of like test the water a bit, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's nice having your own business where you can just be yourself,
totally.
and bring
Yeah.
all those ideas in.
I'm totally deinstitutionalized now. I love being an external consultant and working with totally different organizations and companies. And yeah, look, actually, I still do a bit of work back with KPMG and EY and, some of those big companies, but it's nice to work with smaller companies and community organizations. And like, I crave that diversity of client. So yeah, it keeps it really fresh for me.
It's a good phrase actually. What did you say?
Deinstitutionalized. So
Deinstitutionalized.
it's like, you get institutionalized in these big companies where it's just you become part of the institution and you sort of get locked in. And I've sort of gone the other way. I don't think I could ever go back to a big company. I've been out on my own so long that I just I have a quite a streak of sort of non-conformity in terms of being a bit of a contrarian. And so I don't think I could go back and have a manager. But the downside of that is, you probably know with your business as well. It's like you don't have the support, but you have a lot of freedom, and there's not as much security, but you can go in lots of different directions. So there's, it's both sides of it. Some people really want that support and crave that connection, like day to day with people. And me being a bit of an introvert, I'm happy to, just go off, do my thing, and run workshops and have little interactions with clients here and there. But I think the big thing is just
Yeah.
finding what's good for you as well, which you obviously have.
Yeah. I'm still finding it out. In fact, I'm still getting into like try and deinstitutionalize myself because I still like, when you sort of brought up in that culture where you got to like ask for feedback and like escalate decisions, it's like, who do I escalate to? And it's funny when you work in organizations, you can always like blame your boss, but when you're on your own, you're like, I
Yeah,
am my boss. Like I'm my
it's
worst,
me.
your own worst. The worst boss is like, hello, me, but I'm
Yeah.
working. Gosh, my boss works me really hard, but that's myself to blame.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that you mentioned it's because when we do facilitate, we get exposed to a variety of different tools. And so the tool that really I'm drawn to is the Clifton Strengths Finder. I love that. Same reason that you love Lego Serious Play. It just resonates with you. You can't stop talking about it.
Mm.
So can you share with our listeners who may not be exposed to Lego Serious Play, or maybe they've had experiences where they've been in workshops, a facilitator's brought out Lego, but it hasn't really had that serious play spin.
Mm.
What is the difference with serious play versus just playing with Lego pieces?
Yeah, really good question. And a lot of people sort of mix the two, and that's fine. So, we're probably all familiar with a Lego activity where, someone's given some Lego and you're given some instructions and you go back to back and it's all about communication. And, there's a million different sort of Lego activities out there. But where Lego Serious Play is a bit different is it's very much a question and answer dynamic. So it's like, rather than a learning point that you've got to get across with an activity, it's literally, I come with questions. People build their answers in Lego using metaphor and story techniques, which we teach them. And then from that, they sort of share that story and they've got the insights. So it's very much a generative technique rather than a sort of transferring technique. I think that's the big difference. If you're using metaphor, using story, and the participants have the answers, then it's Lego Serious Play versus, a Lego activity, which are totally fine as well, but it's just a different technique.
Mm. Do you find when you bring out the Lego, same with like running a strengths report, people like, I've done all these tools before, nothing, like
Hang on,
it's
let me
the
just get into the
brand, right?
position.
Yeah,
Like,
like they're rolling their eyes before they even like have the report.
yeah.
When you bring out the Lego, are those things like the conditioning, like, oh, I don't know how to, so I don't know how to build things. Like when I was a kid, none of my Lego creations looked that great. So I'm already at a disadvantage. Like, how do you combat that? Or like, do you
Yeah.
talk about the objections beforehand? How do you overcome those sort of things related to the brand of building things?
Yeah, totally. Like the first part of any Lego Serious Play session is about rewiring people away from misconceptions of I'm not creative, I'm not good at Lego. And I actually love those people. Like the skeptics, the ones that like aren't too sure, like they're usually the ones that, have tried something in the past and it just hasn't worked, or they've been beaten down, or something like that. And so the idea is I love them because I love turning them around. Like they're the ones that usually have the really interesting insights. And so over the years, I've sort of had this very set sort of 20, 30 minutes at the start of a Lego Serious Play session. And part of it's the method that, you need to warm them up to it. But then part of it is reframing Lego versus Lego Serious Play. And the good thing with the dynamic of Lego Serious Play, there's no right or wrong or, creative or pretty or good or bad. It's just you ask a question, someone answers it, and it's all valid. Like you're looking for their opinion, their experience, their idea. And so there's just nothing wrong. And so, yeah, it's a very set warm up that does that. And then, yeah, it's never failed to turn people around. Like it's just literally over hundreds of sessions and thousands of people. I've never had one that's like at the end of it gone, that was crap, or that I'm, not creative. Because in the end, what they realize is it's not about the Lego. Like I've seen people build
Mm.
the worst Lego things, but the story is amazing. And that's what we want. Like we want the story and we want the insights. And all the model is just a prompt, no matter how good or bad it is. So
Yeah.
once you can get that into people, then they're fine with it.
Yeah, that's what sort of really came out with my conversation with Joel, who is like, yeah, he geeks out on Lego Serious Play. But what he was really sharing that I loved is that a lot of the time our workshops are really dependent on conversation.
Mm,
And if we talk about inclusion and getting points of view, usually the people that are the most confident speakers or
mm,
articulate or the extroverts that will pipe up and we hear from them. So what I love from that and hearing about Lego Serious Play, it's new to me because I've only been a recipient of Lego activities.
yeah.
So I loved it as a start even to this conversation,
Mm,
is that it can be more inclusive because everyone's given their pieces and it's up to you to sort of play with that.
mm,
And it's visual, right? It's
yeah.
visual, it's kinesthetic, it's all of it. How do you see it being used? I mean, do you find it's like an equalizer when you come into
Totally.
a group?
Totally. Yeah. I
Yeah.
talk about democratizing the conversation.
Love
So
that.
it really just like all the power dynamics, all of the learning styles, whether they're real or not, the learning style. But the idea is it just levels the playing field with everything, like extrovert, introvert, analytical, creative. Like there's all these dimensions that change the way we have these conversations in business or anywhere. And some people are better at it and some people get more of a voice. And what Lego Serious Play does, it just levels it. So everyone gets to build, everyone gets to share their story. And so that's one of the things I love about it is that you hear from everyone. It is literally 100% engagement. And some of the most amazing stories and insights come from, the introvert who just wouldn't speak up normally in a meeting. And so that's that, and that empowerment, that engagement, and that diversity of thought is hugely like empowering for people, but it also means you get better results because you're hearing more insights. And so once you get all that onto the table, then you've got more to play with in terms of coming up with a better solution. So there's an engagement and a diversity piece, but there's also, you just get better results from having more voices.
Yeah, absolutely. Democratizing the conversation. I think that's an episode title right there.
Yeah,
Really cool
totally.
catchphrase. How do you work on the debrief? Because like I imagine if I'm in a workshop and like you've given us a question and we're all building, and I might look over and like John over the other side has built something like, oh, that's intriguing. I'd be like, tell me, like John, tell me, like how do you facilitate the debrief when it's so visual? You can see what people, as you look around, you're forming an opinion of what someone's created, right? So
Yeah.
as a facilitator, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So we go through the sort of the clear steps. So the first step is you ask a question. The second step is you build. The third step is you share. And so what you do is you generally have it in the classic, 6-person on a table. And if you've got, bigger groups, you have more tables, but it's generally 6-person per table. And you just go around and you say, Leanne, share the story of your model in 1 or 2 minutes. And so we all focus in on you. And you share the story of the model, which is your answer to the question. And then we listen, we ask some questions to get more out of you, more insights. And that's where the other participants can be really curious and say, oh, so what does that bit of the model mean? Or tell us more about that, Leanne. And so once that person's finished, once you're finished, we go on to the next person, the next person. So there's a turn-taking element that allows everyone to share. And then once you've got everyone's view, then you can sort of do a reflection as a group, capture it with, photos and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's
fun.
People do like, oh, what's that over there? And that looks cool. But you eventually get to hear the story of it, which is great.
Yeah. You just be patient, Leanne. You're like,
Yeah.
So how do you go with facilitating facilitators? You've got people coming in, they want this new toolkit. I mean, this is great. You're on the First Time Facilitator podcast. I'd love to share like what tips do you think are really important for facilitators to pick up? Could be in the context of Lego Serious Play, but also just generally as well. Like what are you noticing, and what are some sort of key sticking points for you?
Yeah, well, it's the best part of my job is getting all those other facilitators in the room to talk facilitation. We talk, Lego Serious Play, but it is talking about, and we just add in all our little tips here and there. And so it's a wonderful sort of time for my work. But I guess the best tip that I was thinking about this, thinking back to what was some of the best tips that I wish I had, when I had started. And the first one, whether it's presenting or training, is I realized I was very self-conscious when I was up in front of people. So it's like part of me was delivering the training or the presentation. And then part of me was also looking at you, Leanne, looking at me, second guessing what you're saying. Like it's like this weird sort of self-consciousness. And I think what I've learned, and one thing that I'd say to first-time facilitators is just be in it. Like, don't think about what people are thinking about, so just, you've got your stuff, you just deliver it. You've got to read the room as you get more experienced. You get used to reading the room and adjusting, but don't overburden yourself as a first-time facilitator, second guessing yourself or wondering what Leanne's thinking or being self-conscious. And I think that just being yourself, being authentic, it's almost like being in flow. People respect that more than, you trying to be something for them. So that would be my biggest tip, I think, is just be less self-conscious. And then there's all these other little things. Like I love the little tips and tricks that go into facilitating. Now I'm not OCD, but I like to, go into a room and just stop for a moment beforehand and like listen to the aircon or the temperature, like feel the temperature, look at the space. So it's like all these little things to create the environment and just do everything to make people feel at ease as they come in, and then just be myself. And so that's sort of some of the best tips that I've got. And it's so much easier when you're just yourself. Like you don't have to second guess or worry, or you just be yourself. And then later on, you get those more advanced skills where it's like, you've got to read the room and, you've got to adjust and know when to go in and when to sort of leave the conversation to flow, but when to come in and help. And I mean, that's the role of facilitator, isn't it? It's to help that conversation go. So there's some more advanced skills, but I just think don't be self-conscious.
Yeah, I love that. Neen James, what did she say? She gave me a really great quote. It was, it'll come to me later on. It was the title of our episode, but it was basically focusing your energy on other people and taking the attention off yourself. And be yourself. It sounds like okay, I can do that, but it's easy. I remember when I was a first-time facilitator, I was like looking at all my facilitation role models and like doing what they did, but it just didn't fit with my style. And something that you develop over time. So yeah, absolutely agree. I love that you actually take that pause when you walk into a room and you get the sense of what it's like and the feeling. Lego series play is very tactile. Like you need to be there and building. So what are you doing with like COVID restrictions and are you moving things virtually? How's that working for you?
Yeah, good question. So yes, we are. And sort of when it all hits, there's been groups of us around the world figuring out, well, how can we do this online? And the good thing is that the activities that we do, some of them are just individual ones. So you can actually just have the Lego, build it, and then you hold the model up and you share it via Zoom. So we do a lot of that. And that's sort of the core technique or the core activity with Lego Series Play. So that works perfectly fine with Zoom. Some of the group ones where you build things together or you lay them out on a table, they're a little harder to do online, but we've found ways to do it. But the thing that's been interesting is you can do all the Lego Series Play activities, but the big question is, do you want to? Like for me, like some people have gone, yes, I want to do this, this, and this. And there's, some technical requirements about 2 cameras and setting things up. And there's quite a burden of sort of facilitation process around that. And then some people like me, I'm like, well, I just don't feel, I don't feel that that's what I want to be doing as a facilitator. So I limit myself to just a certain range of activities that I feel work really well. But then other people have been using these other ones that they feel work. So I think we've definitely been doing it online, but it's about choosing sort of what level you want to go to or how you want to dive into Lego Serious Play online. But yeah, it's actually going pretty well overall. A new
That's
field
awesome.
burgeoning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've seen a lot of like paint and sip workshops go online. So I can't imagine it being any different to that. It's like you're still building and
Yep, exactly.
yeah, you're still creating. And anytime, like I love sort of bringing in props or opportunities for people to take notes and engage in physical. I think my friend Yuri, he calls it digital, like combining the physical and digital world
Yeah, it's exactly
together.
that. It's almost a thing that is needed for all these Zoom calls. Like, when you're going in and you've just got a screen, like being able to come back and actually just build and have something physical and analog to then, share digitally. I think it's even more of a counterpoint and even it's needed even more in this online world.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
So Michael, you've got so much experience facilitating. I love that one of your first jobs was actually in training, because many of the people on the show have like they were software engineers and then they found it later. But this has been something that you've been like, gosh, for majority of your career you've been focused on.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a time where something just hasn't gone well in a workshop or something's gone topsy turvy and you're like, we've all had that experience.
Yep.
That was my big experience as a first time facilitator. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's any stories or
I do.
cool
I've got a doozy that I want to tell you.
Okay.
It was my second Lego Serious Play workshop. So I was probably about 6 years into my career as a facilitator, but it was very early on in terms of doing Lego Serious Play. But before I tell you that, one thing I want to say is like first time facilitators, you're gonna make the mistakes, but the idea is you just go and make them. Like, yes, get tips, lovely podcasts like this and courses and learn, but you're just gonna make mistakes. Just look at that as a learning path. But yeah, this one was a really interesting one. So there was a lot of red flags beforehand that I should have realized. Looking back, I see them now. But anyway, it was with an executive group. And so it was like CEO, CIO, all the C-suite stuff. It was like 12 people. And it was an offsite retreat down at a yacht club here in the suburb of Williamstown. So it was a 2-day retreat. I came in for 2 hours to do Lego Serious Play. And the topic was around a communication issue that they were having and that the company was having. They wanted to explore that. And so we did Lego Serious Play, and that's what Lego Serious Play does really well. It opens people up. You get to explore ideas. And everyone was on board. We were building, we were doing stuff, and we were coming towards the end where we do a thing called a shared model, where we actually bring people's individual models and ideas together, and we build them together. So all 12 of us are standing around this table and this model. And then about halfway through the activity, the CEO, who had been involved and been doing it, just stood up and stood back and said, okay, everyone, I think we're making this too complicated. Here's what I think. And proceeded to tell us what everything that the problem was. And I was just like literally like that. My mouth was like, really? And I was too inexperienced a facilitator to realize that my role wasn't to tell him to shut up, but it was to manage him for the group. So I'm just like aghast looking at him, and he just torpedoed the whole 2 hours. And, obviously the communication issue was the CEO in the end. And we had a couple of people, I think it was 2 to 3 months after that session, a couple of people left that group, which I think was a positive, because I think it surfaced, like, we didn't get the objective of resolving the communication issue, but we surfaced what the problem was, which was actually the CEO. But there was like so many things that I could have done better. So I could have managed that conversation. I could have managed him a little bit better, in terms of, bringing, and that was my role as an external consultant, was to do that. And I sort of failed in that, but I learned a lot from that. So that was probably the worst session I've ever had. But it taught me a lot in terms of Lego Serious Play, in terms of facilitation, so many things that I learned from that, have flowed on to the last sort of 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about, so following that, because I've had something, we've all had our experiences. And so, I mean, the reason this podcast started was because of a terrible experience I had in Canada. And I was like, it just wrecked my head for weeks. I was like, what would I have done? Like, and every time there was white space, I would be like, what would I have done differently in that moment? And that's why I started reaching out to facilitators and asking them. How did you, like, what was your self-talk after that? Like, after the 2 hours, like, were you driving back? I mean, you're in this beautiful location, but you probably weren't even recognizing the beauty around you. I don't know, like, how did you cope with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, at one point, it was a bit of an out of body experience. I'm like, is this really happening? Like, but then, you just process it. And a lot of the learnings I took away from that. So that was my second session with Lego Serious Play. The first one was fantastic. It was actually up near you. It was, someone said, come up to Stradbroke Island, Michael, and do a session with me. And I was like, fantastic. And then there was the second one. And I think what I learned from that, I think it's reflecting on the red flags beforehand. So realizing that, keeping an eye on that, so that if that comes up again, to mitigate it even before you get in the room. And so part of that was, I actually don't like working with that sort of level in terms of executive level. It's not that they're, that it's, in terms of facilitation, that it's not, where you should be, but it's just not where I want to be. So I found, and it's a gross generalization, but this was a really big company with C-suite people. And I just found there was a bit of a fixed mindset in with them. And so what I learned was that with Lego Serious Play, you need to have people that have a little bit more of that growth mindset, that they're willing to explore, they're willing to, open up. And as leadership, they want to be able to, hand power over to the people in the group. And so I learned a lot about the level of people I like to work with. So I generally aim now for sort of middle management, team leaders that have a team. I find in general, and they're all gross generalizations, but I find in general that they work a little better with me and with Lego Serious Play, rather than some of the fixed mindset, we've always done it this way type of people. So that was it. It was like the flags beforehand, the type of people I want to work with, a couple of little tactical things in workshop, but overall it was just a huge learning on a lot of different levels.
Yeah. And look, you survived, you're thriving as a result.
It made me who I like. It, like, you got to be happy with who you are now. And that made me. So it's like, if I hadn't done that, then maybe I wouldn't have, over the last 5 years, incorporated a lot of those tips that have then been passed on to other facilitators, so that they don't have to make that mistake. And I tell that story in every Lego Serious Play facilitation workshop. I say, these are all the things you've got to avoid, and, take it on board and sort of pass it through your approach and your experience. So it made me who I am. So I'm always thankful for the experience.
That's awesome. I actually really like how you've thought about that level and growth versus fixed mindset. I'd be curious, because I'm like, I was nodding when you were saying that. I'm like, yeah, I see it. And I'm curious, why is that? Is it maybe because they know it's worked for them, that's why they're at that level? So why do they need to change? I don't know. I'd be curious to dig into that and see if there's any research
I think it's
about
totally
it.
that. I think it's that people at that level, like, I love working with startups. I love working with managers that know they don't have all the answers, and that the team, like, collectively have the answers, that participatory leadership type approach. And I think it's totally that. Some people get to those high levels and they just say, well, I know. Whereas something like Lego Serious Play and my facilitation style is, we don't know, let's explore it. And I think that can be confronting for people. So I find those clients now. Like, before, I just used to take any client, and now I'm like, I need to find the right client for me, and that will really appreciate my facilitation style and my methods and get the most out of it.
And it's sort of like, I wrote back here, you mentioned when it comes to running the workshops that you want to run, the question that you ask yourself is, well, do you want to do it? Does Michael want to do it?
Mm.
And I think that's really important. So like, as an example, with virtual facilitation, like I really don't want to run a whole day workshop on virtual. I will campaign to like chunk things up or do things in a workbook and meet up later. But I don't want to be the person, it sounds very selfish, I don't want to be in front of my computer for an hour running a session a whole day. So I just won't do it.
No, and I think it's a really good point that I think when I first started with my business, I was like, in terms of the clients, I was like, yeah, take any client, you got to get work, you got to build that up. And I think there's this, there's a whole customer experience, user experience field, which, is a big industry. And I think it's right. Like you got to know what the customer needs. But then comes a point where you also need to know what you're good at doing. Like we could be doing anything. You could be using any method. You could be doing any job, but you make choices to sort of narrow down. And I think some facilitators just go, I'm just going to be general. I'm just going to do everything and see what sticks. And I think sometimes it is good to niche down and say, look, I like this. I'm better when I'm doing this. And for me, it's Lego Serious Play. And I'm going to find the clients that appreciate that and get the value rather than just finding a client and trying to mold myself too much to what they want. I think I'm very much let's just go find those other clients that really do want to work with me. It's a bit of a different approach. And it does sound selfish, but it's worked and clients enjoy that.
It's like that abundance mindset. Yeah. Because you absolutely, when you start your business, it's like scarcity, real or perceived, but it's making that shift to I actually want to work. That's why I started my own business. I want to work with people that want to work with me. And it's more of a pull and a push. You mentioned before that you had that 20-minute structured piece at the beginning of all your Serious Play workshops. I love that you've got that set in and it's worked. I just think that's awesome. I need something like that. I have a sort of structure, but it's very loose. How else do you prepare for workshops that are coming up? I'm more interested. Let's talk about like the morning of and state. Like, so energy is really important. How do you get yourself into state?
Yeah. So I like to get places really early. Like I'm definitely in terms of timing. It's so funny. My partner's like, a late person and I'm like super early. She calls it Michael time. And so I'm I need to be there super early. And I think it comes from training and facilitating. It's funny with the preparation for a workshop, I, contact with the client, I send draft outlines around the questions, but with Lego Serious Play, the questions are key. Like the wording of them is so key. And that's the thing that I'm fine tuning even up to 5 minutes before the workshop. So I'll be like, I don't think that question quite works. I'll change it. And sometimes even in workshop, I'm changing it. But that's the key for me is it's the morning of, plenty of time, set up, give myself, half an hour once I've set up. And if I need to tweak a few little things, I can do that. And obviously just be ready for people to come into the room and do the normal sort of welcoming and set that scene well. But yeah, that's usually my morning. Lots of time.
Oh, me too. And there's been times where I've actually had to use, I've been at a workshop so early that, the doors aren't even open. You're just hanging outside.
So much. I'm like, knock,
hotspotting your phone. Come on. And they're like, people that aren't trainers or facilitators don't get it. They're like, the room will be ready 30 minutes before. It's like, that's not enough time. Like
I know.
30 minutes, you want to be like relaxed and welcoming people in. And
and it's funny because I used, like for my workshops, I've used a co-working space here in Melbourne. It's got it's called the Cluster for anyone who's in Melbourne. And they have a magnificent...
The Cluster. So funny. Sorry, the irony of that in Melbourne and COVID, just anyway.
Actually, I didn't realize that until that point. The Cluster, hopefully not of COVID. But they've got a wonderful boardroom on level 17 of this building in the city. And it's relatively cheap and it's just a beautiful view. And I'm like knocking on the door, let me in early. I want to get in. I want to, set up there. And, that expansive view and just sitting there really gets me into the space to welcome people and get them learning and thinking differently.
Oh yeah. And then you get spaces like that. Like I just want to shoot LinkedIn videos and Instagram stories and just like background, like it's so worth it. So what's really exciting about you and your next stage of your business growth is that you're doing something that I want to do, haven't yet done, is write a book.
Yes.
So talk to us, like, what's your book about? Tell us about the process of doing it. How long have you been wanting to write a book? All of that.
Yeah. So the book's called the LSP method. So how to engage people and spark insights using the Lego Serious Play method. So you can probably tell from the title what it's about. It's a how-to book on Lego Serious Play. And what I found was since I started training people like 5 years ago around this method, and there's a certification program that people go through, I was just saying the same things over and over again. So, Steph and Murray and Joel come into my workshops and I teach them the method. I'm like, hang on, I said this last month and the month before and the month before that. And so I just started to realize, well, why don't I put it down in a book to make it more accessible? And so my big thing is Lego Serious Play has been around for 20 years, but it's almost like this hush hush ivory tower. You need to pay for like a lot of money and go on a course to get access to the information. And I was like, no, this needs to be in every toolkit. Like every facilitator, every trainer, every business person and beyond needs to know how to do this. And so essentially what I did was just distill down my course, my experience over the last 7 years with Lego Serious Play into a how-to book. It's literally like, we talked about the 20 minutes warm up. It's literally, I write down what I say. I do this, do this, do this, do this. And I allow people, I say to people, look, find your method in the method. Like I'm going to give you a base, but from that, explore it, change it. But here's where you can start. And so it's literally a how-to of the whole method. And you can go in, you can learn the whole method, you can deliver it. And it's funny, like the process of writing it was just fascinating. So I got a company to help me in terms of they take you through a process where I flew over to Texas in the US about 1.5 years ago. You do a course with them, a workshop with them, and then you have weekly calls. And then they help you with editing and they help you with publishing. And so it was a fantastic experience. And one thing I learned, actually, I've got it here, like I hand wrote the whole book because I started typing away. Yeah. I started typing away on the computer and I'm like, I'm distracted by email. I'm distracted by this notification. And I just went, you know what? It seems appropriate to write a book about Lego, just write it by hand. So I wrote 40,000 words in those books. And yes, the hand was a bit, sore afterwards, and I had to transcribe it, as in type it up on the computer. But it was just a magnificent experience. And the flow that I had from just dumping basically 7 years of experience into a book was a great experience, which I want to do again, but it is a big undertaking.
So much of that I love, like the fact that you made a decision. So to even fly to Texas is like, this is a journey, right? Yeah, and you're investing in the journey. It's not like I'll wake up tomorrow and go, I'm going to write a book and then start. You've like signified it by doing that. Yeah. Any excuse to fly somewhere is good, in my opinion. Yeah. I always like, that romantic dream of just getting a cottage by the beach and writing it out. But even the handwriting of it, I can see how that would work. You're absolutely right. Because the second you hop into a computer, you're in like that work mindset. Yeah. Even the environment that you're in and the fact that you can just take that notepad and write things down. That's super cool.
I was sitting on a bus, like writing it I decided to catch, this was pre-COVID. I tried to catch a bus to some co-working spaces and it gave me like 40 minutes. I was just writing. And it was just, it was a great experience. And it's interesting, like getting a company to help you. What's interesting is they have all their information online. So you can go and you can effectively do their course just self-paced online. It's all free, or you can pay them to help you sort of, accountability and all the other stuff. And I paid a bit of money to do it, but that was part of why I got it done, because they were taking money out of my account each month. And I'm like, I've invested in this. I've got skin in the game. I better finish it. And so it was actually paying was a good thing because it made me finish it, rather than if I hadn't, I probably, I can just put it on the back burner. It's not making me money, that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was like a little subtle prompt to get me going.
Yeah. Yeah. When pay's been garnished, you're like, I need to do this.
I've got to do it.
I've got to do it. Maybe I should sign up for something like that. Totally what I love about your book as well is that you're opening up access to people. And I'm not too sure what the Lego Serious Play community is like. It sounds like that from what I'm hearing is that it's everyone like loves sharing their ideas. And I love that about facilitation. Often you see something in a workshop, like when I'm attending a workshop as a participant, I'm still scribbling notes down like, well, that's a good activity. I might use it. And it's all about this freedom and access of information. So the fact that you're even putting like your 20-minute script in is awesome. Yeah. And thank you for sending me an advanced copy, by the way. I can't wait to read this. Yeah. How many, do you have like a spare room just full of Lego? Like how do you, like even packing like your kits, like how do you move things? I know that's a logistical question, but
yeah. So what do I do with the Lego? Yeah, I've got a lot of it. And it was an interesting conversation with the accountant when I first started, when she was looking at the Lego items on the bank account. I'm like, yeah, it's for work. And I had to explain it. But after we got over that, because, Lego, tax deductible Lego is, just fantastic.
Yeah.
And so what it was, I've got these bags. And so I call them table bags. And they're they're about 110 centimeter circumference. And they're like a play bag that has a drawstring. And so what you do is you pile the Lego in there. So there's all these different kits, and it's actually all in the book. I tell you what kits to get and how to pile it all together.
Hey.
You put it in the kit, and you drawstring it, and you've got one of these big giant kits that I put on a table, open it up, and that's enough for 6 to 8 people to do. And it's so funny. I did a session with 120 people once where I had 15 of those bags, and I wheeled them. I had like suitcase.
Yeah.
I had them over my shoulder. I was carrying 15 of this. It was like, I don't know, like 40 kilos of Lego that I was just wheeling along. And so, yeah, there's been some moments like that. One interesting one was when I went back into Denmark to do a conference about Lego Serious Play. They were looking at my luggage and they're like, why are you bringing the Lego back in? Like, to Denmark? Surely we sell it and it goes. Why are you bringing it back in? And so it was pretty funny that the customs people are like, this is a bit odd. But
Denmark.
Yeah, Denmark. So there was a conference over there that they run each year, and so I actually came from Malaysia where I was doing a job into Denmark, and they're like, "Why have you got all this Lego?" And that was a funny international incident.
I can't bring back the borders, right? Can't wait to travel again. That's some really exciting places you've been to there.
Yeah, it definitely takes you around the world, and
yeah.
It opens doors, like not just around the world, but like people come to you with like, I'm very open that I'm riding on the coattails of the Lego brand. It's very popular. It opens the door. Now I'm a facilitator at heart. And so to me, the Lego and the method is just a way to the conversation and the insights, but I'm happy to use that door. I'm happy to open that door and use that brand to get access to people so that the method can work its magic and we can do the facilitating things that we want to do.
Yeah. Very smart. Very smart. So congrats on the book. That's
Thanks.
Incredible. And what I want to share with listeners is the fact that if you are curious about trying this out, what you said before about you don't have to sign up to an expensive certification. The first thing that you could do is like have a look at Michael's book and maybe test things out, try some activities. Totally. And if you love it, then start investing a bit more into it. I love that you've actually just like made it really tactical and you've outlined what kits to buy. Cause I think that's probably the hardest part for me is like, okay, I want to start this, but even hopping onto Google and like trying to find info, you get so overwhelmed. So to have like a prescriptive approach, these kits, this activity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like,
I've got to like,
I was going to say, it's totally like you do this, and you'll get the same results that I've had over the last sort of 5-7 years. Now there's more to the method in terms of, you can put your own style and your own method to it, but I just want to give people a base to like start with. And then from there, like, you can go further or you can just leave it at that and use that in your training and facilitating. So there's plenty of options. I wanted people to have a start and a foundation.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna have to find some more space in my room. You can't see it on camera, but to the right of me, I've got like my facilitation kits, like all the pens and cards and just like random things, activities that I do. So I'll have to add Lego to it. Michael, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I think we've covered a really interesting array of things, everything from just facilitation to Lego Serious Play. I think the last thing I'll say about Lego Serious Play is like, as a method, it's one of the most reliable that I've found as a facilitator. Like I have such confidence going into a room, and whether it's the big burly car guys, from Lexus, like that I did a workshop for, and they were like this. So like, it can be that person. It can be the Lego lover. Like it doesn't matter who it is. It almost doesn't matter the topic as well. Like it's you can use it across a range of topics, from strategy and innovation and change management and team culture and collaboration and like a whole bunch of other things. It's more about the conversation that you want to have. And if you want to engage everyone, like this method, it just works. Like it's so reliable that you go in, you do the steps and you hear these wonderful stories. And in the end, that's sort of what keeps me coming back. Is I'm a sucker for the stories that I hear. Like I've had people cry in work. A lot of people cry in workshops because they're finally getting out something that was within them, whether it was personal, whether it was something to do with work. And I think for me, it really humanizes work and really humanizes sort of what can be a very sterile environment with work, where we've got facades. And this really helps to break it down and you see the real people. And that's what I'm fascinated with. And like, I'm exploring how we can use it in therapy, how we can use it in like families, how we can use it with communities. So the reason I wrote this book was a lot of teachers want to use it, but are sort of priced out of it because of how expensive it is as a business method. So for me, it's super reliable. It's super fascinating. And I'll be doing this till I'm older and grayer. I'll be like 90 in the nursing home. I'll have my Lego and I'll be asking people questions, and they'll be, getting them to build it with Lego, because the stories you hear are amazing.
Oh man, I'm a convert. I'm going to get that book. I'm going to buy the kits. I want to give this a go.
Give it a shot.
Yeah,
And that's the thing,
absolutely.
like, find if it works for you. Like, this is the thing. You now have a book, which is like not much to get this knowledge. And then you can see, does it work? Does it work for your stuff, Leanne? Does it work for the other person? For Meg, you can try it out. And if it does, well, you've got a magnificent new tool. And if it doesn't, well, you've had some fun and you've tested it out, and you can say, well, that wasn't for me. But I think a lot of people will find it's for them, because it's just a fascinating method.
Well, I think that the number one thing for when the seller for me, I've written it down, is the word reliability. Like, that's what we want. We want to know that whatever process we use is robust and reliable, and it can get people from the transformation that we want to get through that conversation. So reliability, yeah, absolutely. I never even thought of it as a top criteria for me in any type of workshop design, but it really is, right? Is what I'm designing going to create the transformation or the outcome that we're after?
And can I repeat that? Like, because facilitation is always about, like, there's another group, there's a different type of group, there's a different type of topic. And Lego Serious Play it's so reliable across so many groups and so many topics, that I just feel so confident going in every time, that it makes it then a pleasure. Like, facilitation is just a pleasure anyway, but it's even more when you know that what you do is going to work every single time. So it's just fascinating.
Compelling. Yeah. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you if they want to grab your book, find out more about Lego Serious Play and yourself?
Yeah, probably the best place. So it's two ways that I like to connect with people. So I've got a new website, lspmethod.com, which has got all the things from the book. There's a course, the podcast coming up next year as well, which I'm getting into, about Lego Serious Play. So I'm super excited about that. So that's one way. So lspmethod.com. But I like to connect with people on LinkedIn. So just look me up, search me, Michael Fearne on LinkedIn, connect with me. And I find that's a great way to stay in touch and message people and see what they're up to. So yeah, anyone out there, feel free to connect with me, because I love seeing what people are doing. I get a big kick out of where people go with Lego Serious Play. Like, I know we're finishing up, but there's so many different things that people are doing with it. And I get such a buzz hearing that from Joel or Steph or Murray or a whole bunch of other people around the world. So yeah, just connect up with me.
Hopefully Leanne soon. Hopefully I'll be doing a Leanne Lego Serious Play.
I'm interested to see where you take it. Like, where are you going to take it?
I'm already thinking about that. Like, the second that you're like, oh, you could try it in this, or I think I'm interested in the whole, like, change management piece as well. So I'm like, oh, I wonder. I've got a contract next year. I'm thinking, how would I bring it into that already? Just from like 5 minutes ago. I was listening to you, but I was also formulating a plan.
You're multitasking. So change management, I like, literally, it's the best tool for change management, because what it does, it takes people from understanding where they are to where they want to be. Like, a lot of my sessions are, well, let's build the current state. Let's build the future state. How do we get there? And to allow people to process that and allow people to express that it's such a good change management tool. Of all the topics, that's one that I would pick to do with it.
Sweet. Thank you. Yes. Can't wait.
Well, I'll read the book and we'll talk, and I'll
absolutely. Yeah. How would you use it? Michael, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to chat to you today. And funny just hearing, like, the similarities in terms of our stories and your background and what drives you as well. And I also know that you're a keen runner, which is kind of cool. So
definitely.
Yeah,
I love my running.
can't wait to share this. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, can't wait to share this episode and all the learnings and everything that you've got in your book. So thanks again for your time and all your energy.
Cool. Thank you, Leanne, for all that you do for us facilitators.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of the First Time Facilitator podcast. And yeah, you've joined the End of Podcast Club. If you love this one, please share it with any of your colleagues and friends or facilitators or people who want to just get better at running more engaging workshops, meetings, or events. And hope to see you in the Flipchart Facebook group. You can also find out a lot about the show or some of my behind the scenes stuff over at Instagram at Leanne Hughes, or even my website where I sort of share my corporate side at leannehughes.com. Have a wonderful week.